Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday Fishing Report. We're filming for May 15th, so if it's nowhere near May 15th, click up here. This is a link to all our Friday Fishing Reports. We do it every week, so I've probably got something more up to date for you. Big news this week is Sage has some new products for us, and I'm pretty excited about this. I haven't seen them yet, but I think they just went live on the Sage and Redington website, so we're going to check that out because there's a cool option for a mid to high-end fly rod that you guys might be interested in, as well as a cool cost-effective reel that I think is going to play to some of you guys might have an old Redington reel because there's some spool swap ability that might make it really easy for you to get a bunch of spools at a really cost-effective rate. I'm going to talk about that right off the hop in the beginning of the report. On the fishing side of things, the Capilano is open as of today, you guys watching this, and we got some insider news where they're not going to do this to us again next year. But it is open now. I'm going to go over the regs. I'm also going to go over how and where you can tackle that fishery. Because though it's not prime time right now, it's go time right now and definitely worth looking at. It will be crowded on a shotgun opening like this, so you got to take that into consideration. But we'll talk about that in the middle of the report. On the saltwater front, I'm going to go over the tides. There was epic fishing this weekend. Epic fishing almost everywhere people were. And there's a lot of salmon out there. Jay was playing with plugs. He's got some footage of rods biting and him not even caring because the bites were so intense, as well as some cool footage of some lingcod rockfish stuff. And in the written version of the report this week, Jordan has an overview of some basic lingcod rigs that you're going to want to look at if you're new to that fishery and heading out there, or if you're an old hand, you might want to review it and look at it. Or heck, if you don't like the way we're rigging, we're open to tips. Send it in, email it in to me if you've got a way to rig for bottom fish that's a little bit different than what we have in the report this week. Lastly, our fly this week. I pitted Jordan against Zach 2 weeks ago. Zach literally shaved his finger off in a vegetable grater, and so he was out of the game for a bit, but he's come back strong. He did another shrimp for us. Now, the interesting thing about these, both shrimp are very simple, but they add certain levels to a shrimp pattern that you might want to consider, as well as if you can't get in the shop and buy materials, you can look at the two different kinds of materials that were used in this to give it a similar effect. Probably find something in your kit that's going to work. We're going to touch base on that at the end of the report. As always, guys, you want to see more reports like this where we look at tackle news around the world, fishing news around BC, and obviously hyper-focused on the lower mainland. Consider hitting that like button, hit the subscribe button. Let's get into her. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in this week. Let's hop right into the fishing product news because we all like cool new shiny fishing products, and Sage/Redington/Rio put some cool stuff out there in the last handful of days that I wanted to share with you. Now, we don't have this product yet, but it's coming soon and it's something you might want to consider. So if any of this interests you, call into the shop, get a special order going, or call into the shop and say, hey, I'm interested in this when this comes in, and I'll be able to get back to you if it's something that fills your boots. So here we are. I wasn't sure if they had it out for us yet because we weren't allowed to talk about it up until today. And so here is the Sage website. Let's see if they've got it, and they do. Here it is, the new Sonic rod. Talked to the reps about this. I've talked to a bunch of people about this. I have not felt this rod, so I can't tell you guys about it yet, but a review is coming shortly. It is going to be a kinetic technology rod, so much like the Sage 1, I want to say, without touching it, but at a cut down price point to their top of the line rods like the X or like the One was back in the day. Now, they did this with the Maverick, and I thought that was a slam dunk. If you guys want to see a review on the Maverick, I went into detail. I think it is one of the best price to performance ratio rods when it comes to saltwater fishing. I'm going to leave links to that review up here. Check that out if you're interested in a saltwater rod. But I think what they've done is they've done the same thing with their freshwater lineup and introduced that kinetic technology into something that's a little more cost effective. And we'll see. I think it's definitely something to pay attention to. If you guys were thinking about a high end, it's going to probably be in that $700 range. I don't have the exact details yet, but I would suspect, actually, I bet you have the price on the website. Yeah, $550 US. So when you look at Canadian rubles, we're probably in that 7 range. And I'm excited. It should be cool. It looks beautiful, dark green. They named it Sonic. I was hoping they had spikes off of it and it was blue like Sonic the Hedgehog. But it looks clean, looks good. I'll have more information on that. Now, for the other news that really caught my eye, there's a bunch of products that are new. It happens every time this year. But the other one that jumped at me was from Redington. And it was a cast reel. And now most of you are like, a cast reel, Matt, why do you care? Cast is where they pour it into a mold, and it's a great concept. It's a great price point. They don't last as long as bar stock, but they do their job really well. And that is this new run reel. Here it is here. This is the first time I've seen it on their website. And it looks exactly like their rise reel, which is super cool, but it's made of cast, so it can be much more cost effective than the rise reel. Let's see what they're listing it here for. Yeah, $109 US, so do the conversion, put some duty on it. You're probably in that sort of behemoth price point, you know, ID price point, $150, $175, somewhere in there. But the kicker, the cool part is I have been told that these spools, if you look at this looks extremely familiar, and it looks like the rise reels. Now the rise reel is a beautiful lightweight bar stock reel, but I've been told that the spools are going to be able to switch. Now I'm going to check that out for you guys as soon as this reel comes in. All right, now you guys are here for the fishing news, not always the product news, so let's jump into the weather. So on the Vancouver front, things don't look as great as they might have last weekend. Last weekend was gorgeous, but we're still seeing relatively warm weather, and we're still seeing relatively warm nights. Now that should continue the freshet, but when I see stuff like this with the rain, but not too much rain, I can shift my eyes back to some of our rivers that we don't focus on this time of year. So over the weekend, if you were saying, hey, I might want to go to the Squamish, or I might want to go to the Harrison, or I might want to go to the Vedder River and do some fly fishing, watch the river levels. There's a possibility that we're going to see some clearer water this weekend. That said, when I was looking at the water levels before this, they're still very high, and I would consider them not very fishable, but it's still worth a kick at the can if you're close to home and you can get out and do that in a socially responsible manner. All right, on the Capilano front, this has been an interesting one. This is the interesting one that actually carries through to a number of different fisheries across the province. If you guys didn't know, they put in the regs when they came out, when the new licenses were issued, that you could not fish for salmon on numerous rivers that had just a blanket opening year-round. Why? Because there's no salmon in them. I wasn't overly concerned just because I knew that they could react to this and change things, but it got the hairs on the back of my neck standing up a bit. But what it was, and we did get this from the horse's mouth, was that they were going to look at each fishery and then open them up as they come. Now this was as COVID was ramping its thing up, and obviously I think they were a little bit slow reacting to it. They have opened the Capilano, and we have got assurances that next year they won't do this. They won't hold it closed for as long as they have. They'll open it probably April 1. Now this isn't official, but that's just what I've heard through the grapevine. So we'll see an opening next year of April 1, which is probably smart. April 1 is actually really early to fish the Capilano, but some fish trickle through, and there's some opportunity for guys that live close to it or just want to get out for a little bit. But as I speak, they've opened it, and so what does that mean for you guys? Well, when we look at the regs, it's open. You can fish bait. Float fishing for them is excellent this time of year, as well as fly fishing this time of year. I looked back at my records, and it was the 17th to the 27th that I started my focus when I was a young kid and fished the Capilano a ton. And so you guys should start looking at that. Now, a lot of people that are new to that are like, are they big coho? No, they're really small coho. They're ranging between like 14 and 23 inches when we see them right off the hop. They start jumping up into the 25-inch range pretty quick. And a nice one is maybe 28 inches, but most of those come a little bit later on in the season. Get out there, enjoy them. The way we fish for them is right now you can totally float fish for them, float fish row. You can use spinners and spoons. They're really effective when the fish are fresh and aggressive. And there's a cool fly fishing niche fishery that we do for them. Now, I'm not recommending it for beginners, but it's a super heavy sinking line, very small flies, usually in olives and teals. I've got a bunch of patterns to recommend to you guys if you want to call in and ask about that and you're interested. Take your lake line, take your 6 weight, 7 weight, 8 weight, and you can get in the game out there if you're a fly fisherman, or take that float rod or center pin. It can be a ton of fun, and those fish are, because they're smaller, they're usually shrimp fed coho, so they're darned tasty. Now, let's look at Kamloops, because obviously a bunch of you guys have been itching to go up there, and a number of the parks are open. They're going to be able to spread a lot of people out. Now, the weather looks beautiful. 23s, 8s at night, still a little chilly if you're out there camping, but the reports we've gotten are excellent. We've had a number of guys sending in lake reports this week. We just did our Chronomid course. Trevor's getting pumped for that. We're still working on the boat in the back there. I don't have any updates on that front yet, but Jason and I might be spending a couple late nights with a few beers over the next day or two here, putting her all together. Now, on the saltwater front, let's look at tides first, because the tides look juicy this week. We've moved into slightly more mellow tides, and they look like they're focused on the morning. If you look, we're filming for Wednesday night, but we can roll that out. If you look at Saturday, we've got a low slack at 9:40, and then it rolls right up into a high slack, but not a big high slack, so it's not pushing a lot of water. And we're going to see that at around 2:38 on Saturday. And then again on Sunday, we're looking at a 10:14 low slack and a 3:15 high slack. So a good way to fish that incoming tide right through the middle of the day and know that it's not pushing too hard, so it shouldn't push bait around. The big news last week was it was excellent out there. Beautiful weather, a flat calm, even if you were going across the strait. Jason was over there for 3 days doing some work on cabins as well as some early morning fishing. And the footage he sent back was hilarious. Literally him filming rods getting bit and him not doing anything about it. And you can tell at that point how good the fishing is, because he's probably gone through that cycle a half dozen times and realized when he's solo in a boat that there's no point to running the rods. We also heard some reports up Howe Sound. It's definitely worth looking up there if you're stuck a little closer to home. And then south of Bowen was good as well. If you guys want to hear more about that, check out Jason's report in the written version of the blog. He's got details. And then also he did a bunch of bottom fishing, running paddle tails, running bait rigs, and Jordan's got an update there if you guys want to look at your gear. We talked about that. Again, links down in the description for the written version if you want more details. All right, what have I got last but not least? I've got the flies. So I pitted Jordan and Zach against each other last week. I said, hey, let's come up with some good shrimp patterns. Simple, clean, ones that everyone can tie, but we know are going to catch fish. Then Zach decided to take a vegetable slicer and chop off his finger, and so that sort of put him at a disadvantage. So we let Jordan go first at it, and Jordan did a great job. I'm going to have links to that fly. It's called the Avocado Scud. It's a little more brown, which is definitely something you want in a box, green and brown when it comes to scud patterns. I'm going to leave links to that guy up here because it's good, clean. You should be able to tackle it really quickly. Zach came up with a pregnant version, and I'm going to have to give it to Zach. I love Jordan's pattern. It's great. Zach's pattern's got some flair in it, and I like how both of them did slightly different things with their ribbing. Very simple concept, but it's a cool technique where if you want to, you can epoxy or UV resin first, then rib, then UV resin again, or you can rib and then UV resin over top of that. It adds different dimensions to your fly. If you want a fat shrimp, if you want a skinny shrimp. I find that the skinnier style shrimps track better. Let's say you're stripping, let's say you're trolling. If you troll shrimp, it does work, even though a shrimp moves a little bit slower than a standard troll. You can hook a lot of fish just dragging a shrimp around on a medium to slow sinking line. But when you are fishing them under an indicator, you can have them hump up a little bit more, just sort of they're sitting there twitching around. And both patterns will fish under an indicator. Jordan's probably leans better to the drag it, cast it style pattern, but Zach's is a great hot spotted pregnant style shrimp that you should put under an indicator. Fish over weed bed, shallow, fish just like you'd fish a chronomid, because we do call it the potatoes of the fish's diet. May not be the hottest thing going, but you know they're always going to be looking for shrimp because it's a food that's readily available. I'm going to leave links up here. I'm going to leave links down in the description below. Definitely want to put these guys in your box. Now, we are going to come out with some lake box videos. I've got stacks of them here over on my desk. Those are coming shortly for you guys. We're going to have a Chronomid box that's tied with some great local custom patterns, as well as some old faithfuls from the commercial world. And then we've got a meat and potatoes box, which is going to be just a go-to good coverage lake box that you can look at if you're casting and retrieving, if you're trolling, if you're doing that kind of thing. Those are going to come out soon, so stay tuned. We might be giving away a box for free as well, like we did last time, so you'll want to check that out. As always, guys, you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the subscribe button. We'll catch you next week.